Am I still sharing?
Yep, you're all good.
Okay. Okay. It didn't look like I was for a second. All right. I guess we're good to get going.
So we're recording now, right?
Yes.
So we'll just introduce ourselves. I'm Heather Barishka. I'm the head of research, instruction, and outreach in the library.
And I'm Kayla Van Austin. I'm one of the research and instruction librarians and the assistant archivist. Today, we are going to be talking about Gen AI and the framework for information literacy. And before we kind of dive in, we created a resource guide for you all to follow along. We have some resources that we are going to cover today and some added reading if you would like to take a look at that. So feel free to scan the QR code. Heather's going to also put the link in the chat as well. So feel free to take a look at that as well. I'll give a minute for people to scan or get the chat. I also can't see the chat, so
Yeah, so you're good. I have the guide, the link to the guide in there. Yep.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, so we're also gonna begin with a little exercise here. We have, sorry, another QR code for you. But we're just interested in, how would you describe your approach to new technology? In 1 to 2 words. Obviously, throughout our lifetime so far, we've been introduced to and had to learn new technology quite a bit, especially recently. So 1 to 2 words, what's your approach? How would you describe it? And we're going to share it in a word cloud. So feel free to scan the code here, or Heather is going to put the link in the chat as well. And then I'm going to show.
Yeah, I'm gonna type the link in. It's not letting me copy and paste. So
okay. I can show you that as well.
So that's the link to go to Mentimeter to the word cloud, and if you don't want to use your phone with the QR code.
Like we have some results coming in. Ooh. Thank you. Okay. Confusing, cautious.
This is awesome.
Optimistic, yep, open-minded.
Adopter, pragmatic. It really is the whole spectrum here.
Yes.
Responses. Great.
Yes.
All right. Just a few more coming in.
Yeah. Exploratory, really like that. Difficult embracing. Yeah, it definitely is, can be all of these things for sure.
Yeah, that's what makes it challenging.
Yes. Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing.
So obviously we have very varying approaches to the way that we use new technology. Our presentation today will focus on an intentional approach to technology and the information that it produces. This is the approach that we teach in our information literacy classes in relation to the research process. And this is what's supported by the ACRL Framework for Information Literacy for Higher Education. Quite a mouthful, but I'll be talking a little bit more in detail about that in a few minutes. We're going to be doing like a deep dive into the information literacy skills and knowledge practices that are defined in the framework, and demonstrate how they encourage critical thinking and intentional use of all emerging information technologies. But we're going to obviously have a particular focus on Gen AI here. So what is intentionality? This is a definition from the American Psychological Association. There's really kind of three key parts. Having a goal, choosing to behave in a way that will lead to achieving a goal, and having an awareness that you're engaging in this goal-oriented behavior. So in terms of using technology, you want to use it with a goal in mind and the self-awareness of that goal that you have. And then I came across a quote. There we go. Yeah, that's okay. I came across this quote as we were doing our research, and I just thought that it really kind of expresses that importance of using technology with intention. Christian Louis Lang, who I'd never heard of before, he was the father of internationalism and one of the founders of the League of Nations. And as you notice, it says from 1921. So this quote has a lot to do with the after effects of technology of World War I, but here it is 100 years later, and the point is still really relevant about technology. So what is the framework? The framework for information literacy for higher education, in the resource guide that we share with you, you will see a link to a chart, and Kayla's going to show that in a few minutes. But we have it sort of summarized in a chart if you want to have that open and be able to kind of look at it. The framework was created in 2016 by the Association of College and Research Libraries, ACRL, which is our professional organization as academic librarians. It guides an understanding in how information is created and the implications of that creation process for accessing, evaluating, and using information ethically. This is a revision of the 2001 ACRL information literacy standards. They were developed in response to the advent of the internet. But the framework that we use now is much more flexible in addressing all of the challenges created by emerging technologies, especially as they impact the research process. So they're really helpful because they provide librarians with guidelines and they define the information literacy skills in response to changes in information technology, such as we use it with Wikipedia, social media, fake news, misinformation, and now with Gen AI.
So these are the 6 frames. We're gonna go over them just briefly, but again, we have in the guide, let me bring that over. So you can see on our guide here, on the first page, we have the full description here if you want to take a look at it in more in depth. It goes through them quite a bit in depth if you would like to take a look at that while we're going through them. Get that out of the way. But for now, again, we're just going to briefly go over them. Beginning with authority is constructed and contextual in the orange there. So in this frame, it covers how to determine the authority of information. So authority comes from how the information was created and also from the context you find it in. And the level of authority required for information depends on how you'll use it. So for example, in a Wikipedia article, authority is questioned because the authorship is crowdsourced, but a Wikipedia article can be helpful when we do lateral reading, and it can also lead to other credible sources. In information creation as a process, in blue there, information is impacted by the process that created it. Information is produced for a purpose and the delivery method is selected. So for example, the peer review process would fall under this. The process ensures, in the peer review process, the process ensures the quality of the product. Articles are written for publication in journals for the advancement of knowledge and promotion and so on. For information has value in purple there. Information has value in many ways. As a commodity, a way to learn, and a way to influence others. There are legal and socioeconomic aspects of information like copyright, intellectual property, information privilege, marginalized voices, and privacy. So for example, access to information sources behind fee walls, like the databases you get access to through the library.
And so research as inquiry, another one of the frames, this frame defines the process of research, asking questions, pursuing lines of inquiry, revising, both of those as you pursue and gain knowledge. Scholarship is conversation. This frame refers to the ongoing discourse between among scholars and researchers that produces the new insights and discoveries based on varied perspectives and interpretations. And then the final frame here, searching as strategic exploration, that focuses on research requiring mental flexibility because it is nonlinear, and also the importance of evaluation of sources. So that's our sort of like brief overview of the 6 frames.
Yes.
So how does the framework guide an intentional use of Gen AI and other technologies as well? So why do you need to understand, what do you need to understand to use any technology with intentionality? You really need to understand how it works, the quality and the accuracy of the information it produces, how you need, want, and are allowed to use it, as well as the ethical implications of how the information was produced and the ethical implications of how you are going to use it as well. So the framework encourages the development of the critical thinking skills in connection with all of these factors. Thinking critically about information and how it's acquired, evaluated, and used ethically allows for self-awareness and intentionality when using Gen AI, social media, even the library's research databases. So specifically, like, how does the framework do this? This is what we're going to be focusing on next. There have been some other librarians who've been working on interpreting the framework in relation to Gen AI. Amy James and Ellen Thilgo and Miriam Ndungu. But Kayla and I have gone through the framework and added onto their findings with some of our own interpretations as well, and some of the things that we've seen when we're teaching information literacy. So that's what we're going to do next, is we're going to highlight the parts of the framework that directly encourage using Gen AI with intentionality.
Okay, so we are going to go through each frame, and we've pulled out some direct quotes from them, so you can look for them on the guide if you want to. And we're going to begin with authority is constructed and contextual. So use research tools and indicators of authority to determine the credibility of sources, understanding the elements that might temper this credibility. So in Gen AI tools, the information is often presented without context, and the process that created the information is often unknown. So we have to consider, how can authority be determined without context? Where did the information come from? And then how is it constructed? If you happen to go to AI Day, the main speaker that came to campus, she referred to the landing page for ChatGPT as the context window, meaning that the person that that's using it has to give it context in order to get the content, which fits really well within this frame. You also have to consider, if you have expertise in the subject, you may be able to determine authority, but again, if you don't, should you go directly to an authoritative vetted source instead? And even when a Gen AI tool cites sources for its information, those sources may not be accurate due to the way the information has been created through text prediction, because Gen AI tools are not search engines. All right, so recognize that authoritative content may be packaged formally and informally, and may include sources of all media types. So Gen AI tools are just a new way that information is packaged, and again, may or may not contain authoritative content. So the new package of information isn't necessarily the issue. It's the lack of context and knowledge of construction of the information, because authority can't be determined. So the tools may be fine to use depending on your information need or whether you have subject expertise.
And so with the frame information creation as a process, one of the skills that this frame highlights is to articulate the capabilities and constraints of information developed through various creation processes. So in terms of Gen AI tools, it's necessary to understand how the large language models use training data and produce answers based on text prediction. And also to understand that the tools are not always transparent about the scope and the currency of the training data. So the way in which the information is created needs to be factored into evaluating its quality and relevance. And we, meaning the librarians, have found that many of the Gen AI tools are not forthcoming about the data that they've been trained on and the currency of that data, even when they're asked. So even when you ask the tools themselves. Thanks. And so information, another skill defined here is to assess the fit between an information product's creation process and a particular information need. So in terms of the tools, they will produce immediate information in response to prompts. And as we know, some information produced is hallucinated and may not be accurate. So it's really important to have that intentionality and determine what kind of information you need first. What level of accuracy do you need? If you need information that's accurate and current, then, you know, getting it from a Gen AI tool may not be appropriate. It's really dependent on what you know about and what you want in the information or from that information.
The next frame, information has value. This one I think we're all pretty familiar with. So give credit to the original ideas of others through proper attribution and citation. So many tools don't cite their sources, or if they do, the citations aren't always accurate. Some tools draw from open access materials and others use copyrighted material as training data. So citing use of AI tools is not the same as citing the source of the information because often that's not known. We mentioned before, we'll probably continue to mention it, but it's a pervasive problem of hallucinated citations. So we always have to double check that. And also consider when doing literature reviews, it's problematic if the tools are only searching open access materials and those may not necessarily be peer reviewed. There's also many pending lawsuits about tools using copyrighted material as training data. And some minor faculty have found that their work in LibGen, which is Library Genesis dataset, which was used by Meta and OpenAI for their tools. All right. Next we have, and this one's pretty big here. So understand how and why some individuals or groups of individuals may be underrepresented or systemically marginalized within the systems that produce and disseminate information. So bias and misinformation that exists on the internet also is present in content produced by the tools. Many tools require a fee that prohibits equitable access, and they're easy to use by those inexperienced in critical thinking about research. So we know that there's bias in the training data, just as there is in Google search results and Google algorithms. Some tools are free, but others, you have to pay extra to get access to the more up-to-date and more current information or content through them. And the tools provide easy answers that circumvent the process of research and learning, which may disadvantage students who are newer to higher education. And then finally, understand how the commodification of their personal information and online interactions affects the information they receive and the information they produce or disseminate online. So this is very important. So tools will often use any uploaded information as training data, and they're not always transparent about the privacy of your data. So any personal information or images that you share may be incorporated into the tool and appear in results for another user. If you upload any PDFs to a tool for analysis to summarize, that may also be, that will be violating or could violate copyright law because the tool can use it as training data. And any original research data that you upload into the tool may also be used again as training data. So you may be in violation of any IRB rules about safeguarding data. Heavy stuff, but important to know.
So in the frame research is inquiry, one of the skills that it defines has to do with dealing with complex research by breaking those complex questions into simple ones, limiting the scope of investigation. And Gen AI tools are really great through prompting with, taking research questions and narrowing them or broadening them. Traditionally, librarians and subject faculty have guided students through that process through research assistance. And the question just comes up then, is it necessary for students to do that part of the research project to develop their critical thinking skills or not? And then this kind of touches on the larger question about Gen AI and the research process. Another skill for connected with research's inquiry has to do with monitoring gathered information and assessing for gaps or weaknesses, organizing information in meaningful ways, synthesizing ideas gathered from multiple sources, and drawing reasonable conclusions through analysis and interpretation. All of those things, of course, often are used in literature reviews. Some of the Gen AI tools are designed to do literature reviews, but may not necessarily have access to information that's behind paywalls. So when they're using open access material, it's just important to know that that's not all created equally. And the tools can create really great outlines, concept maps, and summaries. They're great at doing a lot of those things that are mentioned in this part of the frame. Obviously, it's important to know what about the training data the tool is used to determine how comprehensive and current the lit review would be. And the open access material used by the tool may be very high quality, but it also, some open access material can be uploaded by authors without it having gone through a peer review process. And as Kayla mentioned before, when any kind of information is uploaded into a Gen AI tool for the purposes of outlines, concept maps, summaries, there is the potential for copyright violation and privacy concerns as well, unless the tool is pretty clear about how they use that material. And then the last skill connected with research is inquiry has to do with it's more of like a knowledge practice, valuing intellectual curiosity and developing questions and learning new investigative methods, maintaining an open mind and a critical stance, valuing persistence, adaptability, and flexibility, and recognize ambiguity, all in the research process. And with Gen AI tools, you can apply these skills when using the tools, right? So you can maintain that critical stance, understand ambiguity, do all of these things as part of research as inquiry. But at the same time, you may also, those skills may be circumvented by the tools themselves. So that's kind of important to consider. If an individual is using the tools with awareness and intention, they can explore and investigate and develop all of these skills. But if an individual doesn't yet have the knowledge of the research process to maintain that critical stance, the tool would just be doing the work for them and then kind of circumventing that learning.
So moving on to scholarship as conversation. So cite the contributing work of others in your own information production. again, one we know about. So often, again, we said this a few times, they often generate hallucinated citations, and creating a compounding problem in the scholarly ecosystem. So we know that hallucinate citations are happening often, and the librarians are getting asked about it quite a lot. So you are aware. But something to consider is what is the impact on the scholarly conversation of inaccurate material being created, shared, and then potentially published and then used again. And then see themselves as contributors to scholarship rather than only consumers. And see themselves meaning like students. So users write prompts to get information from those tools, but their voice is absent from the content. So students engage in the research, reading, and writing process to develop their academic voice and learn to participate in a scholarly conversation. But should that traditional process be modified due to Gen AI tools, and then how?
And then on to our last frame here, searching as strategic exploration. This frame advises, defines the skill about searching for information being nonlinear and iterative, requiring an evaluation of a range of sources, and then the mental flexibility to pursue different avenues depending on understanding. The act of prompt writing in a conversation with the tool is iterative and develops some of these skills, excuse me. Also, consideration with Gen AI tools has to do with the quality of the content and how that might impact the understanding that develops and leads to that mental flexibility. So the iteration is based on the content that the tool returns, which may or may not be accurate or unbiased. There was a recent study that we came across by Jigsaw, which is a subsidiary of Google. And they've recently explored information-seeking behavior among Gen Z students and found that it's very passive and kind of just in like more of like not seeking out information, but more receiving it sort of uncritically. I would tend to argue that that probably applies across the population, not just to Gen Z too. So the concern here is that that behavior may be enabled by Gen AI tools, and the misinformation could be replicated if there's not intention in the use of it. Another skill defined has to do with divergent and convergent thinking. Divergent thinking being brainstorming, and convergent referring to like selecting the best source. The Gen AI tools are highly efficient at generating search terms and assisting with brainstorming. I'm sure we've all used that to some extent. They're not so great at evaluating the generated content for quality to select the best source. So, using it for brainstorming and evaluation of sources can have advantages, but also some drawbacks. And here again, we're to the question about, are there advantages to developing critical thinking skills in doing these processes of brainstorming and evaluating sources? And then the last skill that we looked at within this frame talked about matching information needs and search strategies to appropriate search tools. And Gen AI tools really do not function well as search engines. They operate by predicting text based on their training data. And while that may be appropriate for some information needs and some parts of the research process, for conducting research or doing things like literature reviews, there's some serious questions about that. And referring back to that study about passive information seeking behavior in relation to the research process, it makes draws into question some things about matching information need and the appropriate tools. Another article that we came across and read, now this is from 2023, from the Chronicle of Higher Education, a professor from Amherst College wrote Why I'm Not Scared of ChatGPT, in which he really advocated a new approach to learning critical thinking skills in response to Gen AI tools. One of the quotes from this, and now some of these things may have changed a bit because it's 2 years on now, but in 2023, he said, the things that ChatGPT cannot do, cite and analyze evidence, limit claims, create logical links between claims, arrange those claims into a hierarchy of significance, are the basic stuff of college level writing. Therefore, far from replacing human intelligence, Gen AI will provide new starting points for some of the processes that we routinely use to think. So we just kind of wanted to use that as sort of a way to get some input from anyone about your ideas about maybe how critical thinking needs to be taught in a slightly different way in response to Gen AI or not. So that's actually our next slide. We have, this is a Padlet, just a place to kind of anonymously share any ideas or thoughts you may have about critical thinking, how we teach and learn research, reading, and writing in connection with Gen AI.
Yes, so feel free to, again, scan the code here, or Heather will put the link in the chat. So yeah, feel free to share your thoughts, and I will bring up the Padlet once we get a few come in. And if you're new to Padlet, if you click on the orangey yellow circle with the plus sign, you can add in your text there. And click publish. Yeah, click publish.
Do we have any coming in, Kayla?
People are typing.
Okay. Yeah, it takes a while to type. More than a word.
It is a bit.
More than a word for a word cloud.
It's a complex question too. So
yeah.
usually we approach skills, more critiquing, less generating ideas. Yeah, we definitely read a few things about that one article we read, and it might have been in the Don't Be Afraid of ChatGPT about the pondering this one about
The jumpstart.
The jumpstart about this idea of like taking away the research as inquiry, like taking your time and like basically like it could take away this idea, this like, and maybe it's a little romanticized, but like this idea of like falling down rabbit holes and like, you know, finding something
with
because,
research.
Yeah, with research of like finding, you know, because you clicked on one article and it led to one idea, which leads to another idea, like, you know, it can maybe take away that.
And that could just be us as librarians.
That could also just be that. Great point.
All right.
Great.
Well, thank you everyone for your input. We appreciate it.
Yeah, feel free to continue to add your thoughts. we're definitely interested in learning. And we can continue this. We'll have questions at the end too if you want to talk about this a bit more.
Yeah.
All right.
So I just wanted to mention, in terms of our information literacy instruction program through the library faculty are teaching students and faculty how to apply critical thinking to the use of Gen AI tools in the research process. And this is distinct from our colleagues in teaching and learning and technology, TLT, who are, they're doing a great job with teaching how to use the tools, like introduction to the tools and how to use AI tools. And our focus is more on the impact on the research process and how to use it within the research process. And that's been the focus of our workshops this week as well. So some of the ways that we've been doing this, we've been teaching AI information literacy classes for students. We've also been incorporating AI information literacy into regular InfoLit classes. Myself, I've been taking time when doing like lateral reading to teaching lateral reading to stop and talk about the AI overview in Google and how it's distinct from the Google results that are below it. So that's just one example of how we're kind of trying to incorporate it into regular InfoLit classes. We've also been doing some workshops on Gen AI and scholarship for faculty in by departments. We have our AI and information literacy guide. There's a link to it in the resource guide. We're constantly updating that as information changes. We have our webinars that we're doing, such as our workshop series this week. And we also, we've been kind of working on this for a while because in our workshop series last spring, we had a webinar as well about Gen AI that our colleagues, Christina and Jill and Kristen did. So we're definitely engaged with this and, working on things with more to come in the future.
And of course, we are learning as new things come up too.
And always with every presentation, the caveat that this is, where things are now and things are quickly changing. So
yes, absolutely. Okay, so for everyone, but for our faculty too, on who are listening and tuning in here too. So here are all of our liaison librarians here. I'll quickly go through our different areas. So we have Jill, who covers history, social work, and continuing studies. Heather is humanities. Christina is our health science librarian. Teresa covers business and science. Roz covers engineering. Myself covers the social sciences, and Molly is human sexuality. So feel free to reach out to us if you would like us to work with you to create, course, classwork on any of the things we covered today. Feel free to fill out our information literacy instruction form. We have it linked here as well, so feel free to do that. Always, of course, feel free to email us or call us to work with us on any of this as well. Hopefully you know that, but if you don't.
And I just posted a link to registration for our remaining workshop series this week. Tomorrow is the workshop having to do with AI and social justice, Gen AI social justice. And then on Thursday is the workshop having to do with the new Gen AI tools that are in our databases. So if you're interested in registering for any of those, there's the link there to do that. And at the very beginning, we mentioned, someone asked and we mentioned that we will be posting recordings of these workshops on our AI and information literacy guide. It'll have a separate page and I'll have all 4 of those. Yes. Thanks, Christina. Christina just posted a better link than what I did.
Oh,
so
okay. Thanks, Christina.
So right. I'm happy to answer any questions. If anyone has any questions, just please either put it in the chat or feel free to unmute and
yeah.
We went a little crazy with the references list, or at least I did, because it's a lot of also kind of like things that we read that we thought might be of interest too. So you can see that in the resource guide as well.
If you want to discuss anything you wrote in the Padlet too, we can do that as well. Okay.
All right. So I can't see the Padlet, Kayla, but is there anything?
Yeah, I'll bring it over again.
Oh, great. Well, I guess we got our some input and feedback there too. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. If there are no questions, we can end there. Again, yes, all of our crazy references. They are all linked on the guide if you want to read up on anything. And yeah, thank you. Feel free to reach out to us if you have questions too. Reach out to your librarians if you have questions. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll stop.
Did you stop recording?
Pause. I don't know if this.
Uh,